All right, good.
Okay. Good. Okay. Good to go. That's
All right, so good evening and welcome to the Bells Falls Village Trustee regular meeting. It's Tuesday, April 27, 2021. We had a little bit of a, snafu, but anyway, it's 6:05, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're down here in the Town Lower Theater. Let's see, approve the minutes of Tuesday, April 13th, 2021.
I move approval.
Second? All right. Didn't we also have other minutes to approve? We're supposed to have two sets because we didn't have any last time. I think.
We only had
April, the last meeting we did.
I thought we did two last meeting.
Did we do two? Okay, my mistake.
Remember we did two in the 1 week, the
Okay.
7th and the 9th, and I think we caught up to the 9th.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right, so we're good. All right, any comment on these minutes for April 13th? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are passed. Moving on, additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting.
Nothing right now.
Okay. All right then. Public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Doesn't look like we have any public who wants to talk. Okay. All righty. Then we move on to the manager's report.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you guys a couple sets
Add
of
that down.
photographs here. You remember we started talking through the budget about the condition of the police station, fire station, and the questions about our list of capital projects. And so you'll see one set of photographs which shows the lobby and front door, the areas where we have to do some work, where the door frames have rusted. It's just, you'll have to pass them around. I didn't print out a whole bunch because they kill our printer.
Yeah.
So I figured we'll just
All
share
that ink.
those.
Oh,
So
wait, there's two in here?
So there's, yeah, you can just see in the front where we've got
You
a
got that
couple
one?
problems. When we did an
Oh, I see, they're
ADA
different.
compliance audit on the front of the building,
Here, I'll give you this.
the actual door, the riser to get into the building is out of ADA compliance. There's a little bit of a lip there, so that has to be replaced.
Mhm.
That whole door frame is rotting, and that door is also rotting. So one of the things we talked about is to replace that entire door and frame. Then you'll see a host of photos that show a bunch of basically of rusting in and around the window frames and some of the other metal on the first floor. So that was another thing that we were going to address, and we're going to address that through the operating budget. If you remember, we talked about that, so that would not be a specific capital expense. The second host of photographs shows, we talked about a parking lot relocation. And so, again, there are just a whole host of different photos here. So one of the things we wanted to do is move cars out of the area where the snow was falling off the roof. I think not this winter, but the previous winter, you had actually paid for some car damage because snow and ice had slid off the roof and damaged some vehicles that were parked at the building. So in order to try to avoid that, we're looking at an alternate parking location in that grassy area where we sort of flew the drone, gave you an opportunity to look at what it potentially could look like. And then we would reclaim some of the grassy area right now next to the building. So we'd add in a little bit of additional green space. We're going to kind of propose to do that with a combination of we can use our paving contract to help with the actual paving. We can do the work with our guys from the highway department to do the initial gravel and install the base. The rest of it just requires a couple of car stops and some paving. So it can be done fairly inexpensively. That's probably more like a late summer, early fall type of project. The painting and the front door and those lobby type of updates will happen first. And then obviously after that, the third piece, which we had talked about, is the potential grant. Again, we will try to reapply for the lift, which was about $30,000 the last time we applied. And that would, again, be an ADA compliance type of issue. I don't anticipate anything for that. The last I saw, they hadn't given new guidance as to when that grant process might restart. A lot of things are sort of pending and up in the air. So with all that being said, we just wanted to give you a little bit more information that came out of that conversation that we had talking about the updates that we wanted to do in that specific space, so.
Are you gonna have to go to the DRB to add parking
I
on the side of
think
the
we
building?
can do it as an advisory, as, you know,
Oh,
again, it's a public building, it's, obviously, we don't want to create a hassle, but obviously there's a public safety and a need. But I think we'll work with whatever for screening or other options or other conversation, we will
Well,
definitely.
you
go
know
through
the guy to talk
process.
to anyway, so.
So,
Concern about, so this is seasonal parking, and is there concern about the police cars being so far away from the police entrance?
well, it'll add some additional parking. I think one of the concerns is, especially when we have training sessions or we have firefighters coming for the building, that seems to be one of the concerns. You know, this will supplement the official parking. So at this point, I don't anticipate it being as much for the police cars as it is mostly just for additional parking, to try to remove people from that area where the snow was falling and creating some problems.
Anyone have any other questions?
Just the amount of rot on that door is just, it's amazing. Is it,
Weather, right?
Weather?
We get the wind that comes directly there off the
off
the river. And I'll be honest with you, we're gonna look at some options for the door, because I
Yeah.
don't think a traditional hollow core steel door is gonna
It's
survive.
gonna work, yeah.
So we're gonna have to look at some options that might be
Yeah.
a little bit more durable. We're not gonna get anything, you know, some places have gone to full-on bulletproof, automatic, you know, kind of a fortress kind of door. In this instance, that cost is astronomical. We're not looking to do that. I think we're still looking at a reasonable entry door.
That's probably the original door,
Oh, from 1970s.
I asked
something, when
Sean,
it was
he-
built?
mid-80s.
Mid-eighties?
1983 was when
Oh,
the
okay.
building was built.
Okay.
He
I'm
thinks
sure
it's
it is.
over 20. It might be closer to 30+ years old, yeah.
Mm,
So it's taken some winter weather,
yeah.
that's for sure.
All right. Anything else on the manager's report? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
have-
I
I have
think,
one more question
you had
on
a question?
this.
Yes.
Were they gonna try to turn some of the current blacktop out back into grass?
I think that's
Or
it. The
no?
goal is to try to get some additional green space along the building. So again, we can separate cars and some of the, you know, make sure that people don't park up close to the building. So if we do have an additional snowfall or snow issue, that'll eliminate some of that. So yes, we'll make sure that we try to replace some green space. So it's not just a black sea of asphalt around a building. Nobody wants to see that.
Anything else, Scott?
No, nothing else at the moment. So I know we've got a busy agenda. We've got some folks waiting, so
Yep.
I'm sure we'll have other items as we go through the evening.
Okay. All right, that moves us along to the audit presentation. I believe we have, is that two people from RHR here this evening?
Yes.
Okay. All
And
right,
Josh
Ron
and
Smith
Ron
and
both
Josh
here.
Quinn.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Fine.
Good, how are you?
Good. So I'm Josh Quinn. Sorry I can't be there in person. Nice to see all of you.
Evening, folks.
Evening.
So what I thought I would do is I would just run through my presentation and then we can do questions. Won't take long. It's just a short report. No, it's still in draft form. We're still looking for some information to get to our final, but this is just an update for which we gave you folks a couple of weeks ago and includes the general fund as well. So first off, I think I just want to, let's see. Do you guys have a copy of the short report?
I did. I distributed it, so everybody's got a
Good.
copy.
Okay, great. First off, I just kind of want to just talk in general about the year FY20 for Bellows Falls Village. I think it was a difficult year. I think that there were some struggles, both in I think some of the record keeping, which and some basically reimbursement requests, which we'll see in some of the large account receivable line items in your water and your sewer funds, which then lead to some of the concerns that I know a couple of you have had about your do-to-do-froms in your sewer fund, for example. So, you know, I think that the pandemic caused a lot of disturbance in all towns. And I think you guys also had some turnover, which probably led to some even larger difficulties in just making sure that things were done in a timely fashion for the town, or for the village, excuse me. So I'm going to jump right into the first, or I guess technically the second page, which is statement C, which is your general fund, your governmental funds balance sheet.
Anybody else waiting?
Um,
Just give me a heads up and I'll
Sure.
let them in. I just can't see it from
I
that side.
understand.
as well as
Okay.
probably can.
Sorry about that.
Yep, no sweat.
Technical difficulty.
Yeah, your general fund had total assets of $1,063,000, liabilities of $493,000, with deferred inflows of resources, most of that being deferred tax revenues of $46,000. And you finished the year, so June 30th, 2020, with an unassigned fund balance of $523,000. When we look at fund balances, we use a general guideline of 30, 60, 90 days worth of operating expense. 30 days worth of operating expenses is $125,000 for the village. So you guys are actually over the 90-day mark and in good position in regards to the general fund. Next page is your statement of revenues, expenditures, your changes in fund balances for your governmental funds. This is basically your operating statement. So you had revenues in the general fund of 1.7 million, expenditures of 1.5. Excuse me, some transfers in of 20,000 for a net change in fund balance, so a surplus of 198,000 in FY20, which moved your fund balance from 324 up to 523. Next page, this is a quick overview of the budget to actual. The biggest thing on this, or the biggest variance that I'll just note is under public safety, there's $222,000. And that was mostly the result of a couple positions that were vacant all year. So that's where most of that savings came from. I'm going to skip through Schedule B and Schedule C through your special revenue funds. There's not a lot of activity there, not a lot of dollars. And I know you guys are busy tonight. We'll jump right down into Statement G. So these are your net position, your balance sheet for your proprietary funds, which are your water and your sewer funds. So you'll see those accounts receivables in your water is $3.2 million and your sewer is 1.2. And those are basically reimbursement requests for your bonds, your loans, for all of the work that you've been doing. And as I mentioned, some of those I think were just late this year, which is why they're receivables as opposed to just being cash in, cash out. So that's one of the things, and you'll also see that money then reflected down in your net position as well. So your assets in your water fund, 12.5 million, in your sewer fund, 17.8. I'm sorry, those are your capital assets. Moving down into continuing statement G into your liabilities, which is the next page. That's where you see under the sewer fund, there's that $993,000 in that due from. And so what that is saying is basically that the sewer fund owes the general fund, in this case, $993,000, because the general fund paid for those projects that had yet to be reimbursed. That's basically what that's saying. Your non-current liabilities, so that's basically the bonds the bonds payable, as well as your accrued compensated absences, your net pension liability. So you can see the bonds that you have left. And then that all flows down into your net position, both in your net investment in capital assets, as well as your unrestricted for your water and your sewer. So with the total net position in water of 4.3 million and your sewer of 8 million.
I have a question.
Yep.
I want to go back to the asset account and the account receivable.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate again on what the account receivable is?
Yeah, absolutely. So your accounts receivable, there's a couple major pieces in your accounts receivable. The first is any of the loans that you have acquired. So your USDA Rural Development Loan, for example, if you have a loan that is $1.6 million, and if you've only drawn down or used, so say $500,000, you would still have a receivable of $1.1 million sitting in that accounts receivable until you draw that money down.
All right, now in the case of the water fund, how much is that?
In the water fund, you've got, it's about $1.9 million.
And what about the sewer?
I'm sorry, excuse me, it's $2.9 million. Sorry, $2.9 million. And in
And
the
what about
sewer fund, just a minute. Just waiting for my to load up here. All right. The sewer fund is $830,000.
Okay, and then the balance is just customer fees that haven't been paid, is that it? Or-
Exactly. Yep. Sewer receivables, water receivables, and various little smaller accounts receivables.
Jigs, at
Okay,
some point in time when we finish this, part of that will also reflect some additional capital offset from Walpole, because they do contribute to a percentage of that capital investment, and that's not reflected in this at the moment.
mhm.
So that's one of the items that, as Joss was talking about, we still have to complete. So you will see that, again, not all of that is Bellows Falls ratepayers. It's also coming from our agreements with our outside customers.
Of that
as well.
receivable, yeah.
Yes.
But if there's 830,000 pending for the water, for the sewer department, and our due to is 900 and something thousand, why haven't we drawn down that 830,000?
Actually, that 830 is something that you have requested. That's actually money you have spent. So that money has already been expended, and you have requested it. You just, as of June 30th, 2020, you had not received it yet.
Okay.
And I just hop in here to
Yes.
say that the request was actually made late, based on the information that, that we got and were provided. And that clearly posed some cash flow problems there. And I'll go back to the, to the comment that Josh made initially with the struggling, of the finances. It's pretty tough to absorb $900,000 when you're 6 months in arrears, in building or whatever the, the math works out to. But there was a delay, and, and certainly that bill got footed, something that was non-sewer related.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The other comment I would make is that based on what I'm aware of in terms of what we've got, what we've done, and what we've got planned to do, the 2.9 number for the water seems high. Now, I suppose if we don't do the projects, or are you saying that's money already that's been spent?
No, not all of that's been spent. No, so that a portion of that money has been spent. But for example, and that's some of the information we're still waiting on, is to understand how much of that, of some of those bonds have been spent, because that's not yet been provided, to understand how much of that 1.6 has been spent and how much has not.
And obviously, when the money is received, it would become debt, I would assume, right?
So no, so that 2.9 is already reflected in your debt, because those bonds have been recorded,
Okay.
which is why they're hitting your receivables. So it's in your debt number already. So
it's
if you don't spend it all, it's going to come out of your debt as well.
Okay, all right. So it's in the debt.
Yep.
It's in the debt.
That it, Jake's at the moment?
That's it, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, moving on.
Yep. So then down to statement 8. So this is the operating statement for your water and your sewer funds. So operating revenues in the water of $969,000, total operating expenses of about 1.1 million. Then you have, excuse me, your non-operating revenues expenses interest income, grant income, interest expense, gives you a net income of 176,000. You had some transfers out of 20,000, so a change in net position of 155,000 in your water fund. In your sewer, total operating revenues of 1.59 million, total operating expenses of 1.3. With a operating income of 220, you had some negative interest expense there, with a total change in net position of 54,000. So both of those, at the end of the day, are operating in a surplus, which I know the sewer fund in particular has been a concern for the village, making sure that that was moving in the right direction. And I think, as of June 30th, 2020, it was still at least moving, although slowly, in that right direction. The next pages are your cash flows for the proprietary funds, as well as a statement of cash flows. And I'm not going to get into those nitty-gritty details because a lot of that's basically figures that are tying back to those other numbers that we just looked at in the balance sheet and the statement of revenues and expenses. And so kind of a decent amount of accounting stuff that we can go through if you'd like, but typically I find that people are not too interested in those figures.
You good right now, Jake? At the
What?
moment?
Well, what I'm trying to get at is if you look at I've looked at the last 5 or 6 years, and the progression of capital expenditures and bond proceeds, and also grant proceeds, et cetera. And it really was in the year 2020 that our due to jumped from, it had been zero, due from a small amount in 2019, and we jumped up to 964,000 in 2020, which you reflected on your sheet there on the due from. I might be off a little bit because I was using preliminary numbers.
Yep.
But if this 830,000 that's already reflected in our debt, if we actually get those funds, would that reduce this due to account?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so that basically, when you receive those funds, you're going to, it's going to hit the cash account, which is actually sitting over in Rockingham. And then when it flows through the due to due from accounts, it's then going to hit the receivable. But when it flows through the due to due from accounts, that 830 is going to come off of the 993.
Okay.
Okay.
So it'll be down about 160
Right.
approximately.
Which obviously is, that's good to know. I like I said, I guess you indicated that we were, unfortunately, we were late in applying for those funds, and do you have any feel for when we'll receive those, or who is that up to, the bond bank, or who?
My assumption is you've already received it. I'd have to check with Shannon. I think it was billed for in, I want to say December or January, but I had not heard. I assume that you've already received it. USDA is usually pretty good about turning that stuff around pretty quickly. Okay,
because we're still showing in the most recent financial that we received, that due from our due to account was up to 1.1 million.
Yeah,
in our interim financials.
Yeah.
Again, I'm struggling with why that's the case. I know we had some we had like 130,000 of capital expenditures in fiscal 21, with no, debt proceeds expected. Obviously, if we spent that money, so I think that would obviously add to the due from, particularly if the proceeds from the bonds hadn't come in. So anyway.
Can I ask what your last interim financial report date was?
Last
I
month,
think it was,
wasn't it?
I think the one that had a balance sheet, I've got it right here, hold on.
Because if the billing was done in January, Josh had said, and we've got some kind of a story to tell about that. I could see where it could take, 4 to 6 weeks to get paid, but not much beyond February, you all.
Mm-hmm.
This is, the date of this report was March 8th. And I believe it was for the end of February financial, okay? And it was printed on the 8th of March. And I got the water fund.
Would you all like us to look into to see when that billing was done and when and if the money's come into the town? Because clearly it's post June 30th, but we would be more than happy to reach out to Shannon to give some confirmation.
Based upon what you're saying now, it looks like it's still in the town.
Because it,
So wherever it is, it doesn't look like you've either got it or where it should be, I think is a
Right.
fair way to say it.
That's what it looks
no,
like.
it's on 3/8, we're at 1.1 million
Yep.
due to.
So that leads me to believe you spent some more money in addition to what existed at June 30th and, and for whatever reason, either that reimbursement hasn't come in yet, maybe it was misposted, but we'll certainly get you guys an answer to that, through today. So, and give you
That'd
some
be great.
details.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay. So we have a couple. We have what? One more page. Or
That's-
is this not something we're gonna cover?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other
Okay.
questions you're happy to answer or?
Questions?
Yeah.
Anyone other than Jigs at the moment? Just to see.
I have one question. Could you go back to statement C?
Sure.
Just kind of recap the total fund balances for us again? And how that works, the 30, 60, 90?
Yeah, so 30, 60, 90 is just a general sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a recommendation of where we would recommend to have a fund balance. So either 30, 60, 90 days worth of operating expenses and trying to fall somewhere within that range based on some of the uniquenesses and, intricacies of each town. And that's kind of just the general guideline we give folks to say, okay, if you're within 30 to 90 days of operating expenses and your fund balance is in a good place for you guys to be able to react and respond to challenges or issues that may come up.
It's a benchmark. It's a good benchmark to see where you are with the health of, your
Well, this-
overall
This is
operation.
considerably more than the year we had. What? Less than 50,000 or
You
something.
had
like that?
nothing.
That would
That's
not
a
be-
great
You had
point.
nothing.
You guys had nothing.
That would
Good
not be a
memory,
good
good
benchmark.
point.
That was a bad
So-
year.
We listened to your concerns.
So ideally, not less than 30 and not greater than 90.
But this really kind of brings up a different point, you all. You guys are in a favorable equity position, certainly than where you were 3 years ago. But the problem is it's kind of getting masked by some cash flow problems here, for the village. And that's where we'll try to reach out and work with Shannon to get you some answers to see what happened. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, particularly in that, in the sewer fund,
Right.
I really think you all that people have a hard time understanding that you can have an equity position, but at the same time have a cash flow problem. And here's the reason why right here.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you have anything? Okay. Jigs, did you have some more things?
no, that's been helpful. I appreciate it. And
We very much appreciate this. Is some positive information. And once you can help get that problem solved, we'll know, it'll be reflected in what we're seeing on a monthly basis. That'd be great, so.
Absolutely. Good.
So just on a personal note, I wanted to thank Josh and his team. They've been very patient. You know, we've had some issues trying to coordinate our end of the bargain, and they've been very helpful and patient and trying as hard as they can. Even getting these drafts out tonight took a lot of effort. And I did appreciate all of that because it was not simple for them to pull even this together. So I just want to personally thank them for, you know, working through this, and we will get to the bottom line in the final. So we'll take draft off. We'll have a management letter and a full follow-up, hopefully within the next couple weeks, and then ultimately, at that point, then we'll be moving on into a couple of items that are somewhat important and also deal with fixed assets. That's something that we have talked about. We have a proposal to make a change in how we account for our fixed assets, so I think we're going to go through with that. And a couple other practice-related items so that when we do year-end close, we have all of our reports and all of the data that's necessary to make their process smoother on the audit end. So I think there's some things in the works here that will make this smoother as opposed to sort of the bumpy ride we've been on for the last 2 or 3 months. So just from a personal standpoint, I wanted to thank the folks that have been working on this. They've done a great job and very, very helpful. So thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. You're
All right.
welcome. We're just happy to help. You know, our goal is the same as yours, just to have keep you guys in the best financial health as possible and give you guys good information so you can make decisions that are in the best interest of the village. And we're happy to help in any way that we can. And it's a pleasure to work with Scott and his team as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Obviously, the big issue for this board is setting the rates, the water and sewer rates. And that's why it's been so important for us to try to get a better handle on just where these accounts sit. And we've been presented with which we've accepted a budget, and the combination of the questions on the historical and the picture that we see on the budget has raised questions in my mind as to who needs rate increases and who doesn't need rate increases, and so that's part of the urgency as far as we're concerned here.
When we get to the fall, we need to set something. We want to know we're on firm ground before we get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes along with what Scott just mentioned about coming in and working with you all to work on your year-end close practices. So you can have a good handle on things. I mean, even before we get there. So you can feel confident in the reports that you're getting and making sure that things are done and tidied up and reimbursement requests are completed and stuff along those lines. So you guys can have that, most timely information that you need to make those decisions.
Great.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
All right, guys, appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Take care.
All right. Good
Everybody
night.
be well and safe.
Yes, you too. Moving on the agenda, we have approval of the MOA for the local 410. And I believe we have a couple of documents in our pack that came in the packet.
Right, so we did get an updated memorandum of agreement that was circulated through the PBA as well as through our attorney. So we did send a copy back through to this board. We've had previous conversations about the status of our negotiations, and there had been some difficult negotiations, I think, through this process. I think the village team, I think, worked diligently, maybe more than they had originally thought they would be to get to this point. So I think that this agreement reflects a little bit of extra effort on that side of the equation. Be that as it may, what this agreement will do is it will give us a schedule of wage that we can use as part of our recruitment processes we had discussed, where in the market, actively seeking out vacancies and trying to get some new officers and some qualified folks here. And one of the components that is important, obviously, for anybody starting is what's your compensation and what's your package of benefits and the types of things that I can look forward to as an employee. So this will go a long way to helping us in that respect. There are a couple of other items in this MOA that I think are also somewhat beneficial in relationship to our longer term goals of keeping flexibility within our compensation schedules. I think that the board had set some goals about how they wanted the compensation to be considered, and I think that they certainly did not get into a continuous growth pattern, which I think was a concern of the board, because that is something about affordability. As you saw in our brief financial update, PBA, or the cost of our public safety, is one of our largest costs within our general fund. And while last year we had vacancies and you saw some positive cash flow, if we did go back to a full schedule, then there's obviously more cost and other considerations for the board as they go forward. At the end of the day, I think that this was a good package for us to, at least for given where we are in our recruiting cycle and where we are in our, hopefully, continuation of sort of redeveloping our department. I think this is a milestone that will be helpful and a marker that I think will push us towards a more transparent, more professional, and higher performing department. And so I'm hopeful that the board will see that as well and vote to approve this package, and we can move forward with some of the other initiatives that we've talked about in this room that I think are also important to this board and to the community as we go forward.
So at this point, does the board believe that it's at the point of wanting to make this motion to move
I'll make the
forward?
motion. I'll make the motion to approve the memorandum of understanding,
It's actually memorandum of agreement.
of
but
agreement.
Either way.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, further discussion on the memorandum.
Well, I would, Deb,
Yeah.
you were the main person. I don't know if you want to give a summary or whatever, but
Well,
what started out to be what we thought would be a routine
oh yeah,
3-year renewal of a contract turned into what we are now calling the perfect storm. And for the people out there that are listening, in spite of all the police issues in this country that we're facing, one of the biggest issues we're facing is a lack of people going into this profession. And what we've tried to do with this particular memorandum of agreement is to position ourselves, as Scott has said, to move forward competitively in a very competitive environment. And unfortunately, that means more dollars, but I think we all agree that it's important that Bellows Falls have a highly functioning police department, and I think hopefully with the leadership that Scott and Chief Bemis bring to us, that we will be able to add a couple of officers and continue to provide the service that we think we're providing. So anyway,
I think our dollars, the dollars spent are more as moderate as we could possibly make them. Based upon we have a small force, that's all we have left. Desperately efforts made by the manager and the chief of police to find new candidates to not so we don't burn out our current officers in place and our part-timers, and this is going across the country. So for a small community such as ourselves, trying to keep enough officers didn't seem like it should have been a problem, but it has become one. As everyone is poaching from everyone else and offering bigger dollars and, other things like that in order to drag people away because they need to fill their numbers. Every town surrounding us is also looking for more officers too. So we did the best we could, and yes, perfect storm this year was nothing normal. There was nothing normal about negotiations this year at all. But I think we've done the best we could with this, and hope that everyone is happy with it. We have a signature from the president of the local 410, so I think we're ready. Is there anything further on this item?
I'd just like to also thank Ray,
Yep.
our attorney, Ray Masuko, has worked very hard on our behalf in this regard, as well
Yep.
as the mediator that we
Yes, our
that we
mediator
utilize.
really went to the wall to try and keep us talking.
know,
I thought the
tried-
mediator was tremendous.
Yeah, she's
I've
great.
had a lot of
Very,
different
very hard.
experiences, and she was one of the better
So,
ones I've had.
yeah.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
So we do appreciate the support we receive from those people.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, so if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of signing the memorandum of agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, which copy are we signing? You have an
Um,
original?
If you want to go ahead and sign that one, I've got to send them copies anyway.
Okay, so if I take this one and I just sign it and pass it along so
Yes,
everybody's
we'll
on the
use
same
that
page,
one.
okay,
Correct.
all right. I'll go here first and then backwards. You have a pen? You got it?
I do,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, great. And, where am I? So we'll get this signed and, oh, nice color. All right,
Like declaration, let's
it-
make sure it's big.
yeah.
Stands out, blue.
Exactly.
Declaration of Independence.
That's right. Okay, so we are signing that document and moving on to the next item on the agenda. And thank you for everyone all the efforts made this long trip to
So-
here.
At our last meeting,
Mhm.
Deb had asked for some updates concerning the pond pump house. And so we did a little bit of research, and then turns out that we did have some additional information that sort of relates back to the condition of the existing facility, and also what it might take in order to bring it back to a higher level of functioning. We haven't really identified what we would use it for, but just in terms of preservation or long-term stability of the building. So I had attached for you some updates that just show what types of activities might be undertaken. We did not budget anything for that specifically within this current operating budget, so anything that we talk about would be additional costs, but you can see that you can spend upwards of, given this is a 2018 report, you could probably say that that's a $15,000 to $20,000 expense
Mhm.
to basically cover a variety of preservation activities to keep the building without an identified use, at least keep it in decent condition.
And initially this was a historic building, but once it was moved off of its surface, it's no longer considered eligible for historic funds. However, we had promises made, and I'd like to see them kept. And based upon the schedule you see, so Scott's talking about the sheet that gives a list of all the items that need to be done, and it was 11 to 14. So if we say it's 15 or 16. I believe that through regular budget items, we could probably do do the most important things a couple a year, and then work our way towards its reparation without having to put a lot of money into it. But what disturbs me is that these conversations were starting in 2016 and nothing's been done. I mean, they did do a study, but repairs to
Physically, I don't believe we've done anything
We haven't done physically,
specifically
right.
to preserve the building.
Mhm.
So, and again, I think Deb's correct. We do have some, with that type of, looking at the list of items, we could probably at least do the preservation type of work, probably in that neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000, which would preserve the building envelope, the roof, the exterior. And then if you go further and develop other portions of the building, that's, lighting and additional historical kiosks and other types of historical, an opportunity to give it more visibility, then I think that's, an expense down the road. But if that's the sense of the board, then we'll certainly work with Brian and his crew and get some prices to at least get the building stabilized, I guess would be the best word to
So what is
describe
the
it.
board's?
Well, I got a
thinking about
couple
it?
of questions. The building right now, where is it physically located right now?
It's right by I'm not exactly still location
When you
by
go up to
Monter's
the
Pond.
water plant,
Yeah,
as you drive up,
this is up towards
the-
Monmouth Pond.
it's up at the pond.
It's off the
Yeah,
drive.
it's at the pond.
Just as you get to the top of the hill to go to the plant over here, it's right on the left.
It's on the other side, right? it's on
Okay,
the
it
left.
is
It's in the
it,
grassy area, top of the hill.
is the, do people go in there? I mean, is it open or is it
No,
locked?
I mean, you can walk around it and up to it,
Okay,
but I don't believe it's open.
It's not open for access, no.
No,
I think the door on is locked.
yeah,
They pull it off the pond and it's on that stone foundation, I
Stone
think, or is it
foundation, okay.
cobblestone?
I think it's got some drain, like just a gravel base.
Now
so
the-
it can drain, but
the purpose of preserving it, would it be to stay in the current location, or is this part of some kind of a historical preservation that would cite this someplace else? I mean, do you want people to see this as a point of interest and have people go up there on a regular basis to view this thing? Or
People
what?
visit Miners Pond all the time.
Yeah, I think
Walk
Well,
the
I know a
dogs
lot
and
of
things
people
like that.
walk
Yeah,
up there and stuff
exactly.
like that, but I guess the thought is that it would just stay where it is.
I think that's, through all the things, no one's mentioned moving it.
I think it makes sense to leave it where it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of where its home is ever, always was.
Maybe some
Just
point
now it's just not on
fundraising,
the
some,
water.
Not on the
It's
water,
sitting
yeah.
on the edge of the pond, or
maybe historic plaque or some thing posted by it with some history about it, because it has historical, reference to the community, and it was there a long time. People were really upset when it got removed.
yeah.
I mean, I remember it was on the cover of one of the annual reports too, because it has it's picturesque when you look at it and that sort of thing, and now it's off
Yeah.
to the side. So the intention is to leave it where it is and make it a point of interest.
It seems to me that this is something that we ought to put out a request to the public to form a committee and have a leadership on the committee that would take this on as a project and try to get people to volunteer. I mean, I know how to paint and stuff like that. I mean, I don't do roofing, but it just seems to me like the kind of community effort where if the trustees were willing to, pay for materials, and we could get a committee that would enlist volunteer help. I know it's done all the time. We did it just recently up at our church. I mean, and it's amazing what you can accomplish with a few dollars if you've got people that are willing to spend a few hours here or a few hours there. It has to be organized.
Yeah, well, the CLG committee was working on it.
But
And they're volunteers, so they could
I-
continue that effort.
that would substantially, it would keep the budget
Yeah,
part for the village
Yeah.
at a reasonable amount. Because in today's market, the labor cost is what overwhelms a project. Used to be, materials were more and then it was kind of even, Steven, now it's way the other way.
Mhm.
So I think we ought to try to generate some interest from the public here in Bellows Falls and see if we can't form a committee.
Well, I'm wondering if we kick this back to brought it to the Conservation Committee and asked where they would go with it now, because this was 2016. The drawing, the schematic was 2017.
2017.
The
yeah.
review was
2018.
2018. So we're only a couple years away from there. And one of the things they had is someone was designing a poster. I remember reading that in here.
Yeah, Charlie Hunter.
And I've never seen it. Have you?
I have not.
So that would be of interest, and the Conservation Committee was spearheading that sort of thing, and it included boosting fundraising, like maybe selling the poster or those kinds of
Yeah.
things, like we've done in the past with some of Charlie Hunter's paintings,
Right.
in order to provide just exactly that. So
I'd make a contribution. I mean,
I don't know who the
you know, I
chair of the
think
Conservation Committee is, but
combination of,
It might make sense to get their current take on it.
Yeah.
See where they stand, and then.
yeah. I don't know who the
Depending on
current
what they
chair
tell
is,
us,
but I
go
can
from
find
there.
out and go back to them and, reference the materials we were reviewing today. And see where, if they could get it on their agenda. And I don't care, I'll show up to one of the meetings and
Yeah, we
see,
could-
see
we
what they want to do.
yeah.
Okay.
After they've made that much effort in 2016, 17, and 18, we'll see if we can't keep going with it. Because it looks like they were trying to keep the promise that was made to us when it was taken off of the pond, so.
I see.
So what do you think of that? That sounds good?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
And we'll bring it back to us at some point when we see some movement.
I think it's a nice size project that's manageable and a good community.
You're a finished carpenter, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a real talent. when it comes to it.
Well, now
Forget
he's
it, I
not doing
think we'll kick
contract
in the money.
negotiations.
Yeah.
Lots of time.
I don't want it to fall over. Number 4 on the agenda is the maintenance of the hydrants discussion. Was that something that,
That's something I asked.
Wade had
about.
Okay.
asked, and it really more, and I'll let Wade jump into it, but in talking with the chief and with Brian, there's a protocol to paint hydrants, and how you paint a hydrant specifies what the hydrant really uses for. And it's, so anyway, with that sort of as a background, I'll let Wade sort of bring up his concerns.
So basically, I asked to have this on just kind of a straightforward thing. I mean, obviously, it's kind of twofold. First of all, not all, but there are a handful of our hydrants in the village that could use a little
oh yeah,
TLC, number one. And it's something simple that we could do to just spruce it up a little bit, make it a little bit nicer. So what happened was I was gonna volunteer to do the one across from where I live and maybe 1 or 2 others on the hill that I live on. But knowing a little bit about this, I said, well, and I did talk to Brian and the chief, and I said, well, before I actually just go clean it up and repaint it, I should find out what the current NFPA standards are for municipal fire hydrants. So the long and short of it is I did that. I did some research. I checked with ISO as well. And basically, I just wanted to get your input on just standardizing the colors. So as I paint a couple and somebody else does along the way, that we're all kind of on the same page. So that's where I'm at.
yeah. So what did Brian say?
He was
Because
fine.
they control the hydrants, right?
No,
So-
I actually, so basically, just to summarize it, the color of the hydrants, not the main barrel, but the caps where the water comes out,
right.
the outlets, they are based on, the color of them go in accordance with what the gallons per minute for that hydrant flows.
Okay.
Oh,
So there's a
So-
correlation. Okay.
So, for example, the one on across from my house, it would be, the caps would be orange,
Okay.
and the main barrel would be red.
Okay.
And then depending on the flow of the other ones, the colors are light blue, green, orange, and red
Okay.
that's for the caps.
for the various
The
caps.
caps because
Depending
of the
on what
gas
that hydrant flows. And
Mhm.
they have all that information at the water
They
department.
do flow tests, so we do
Yeah.
have.
So
pretty
that's
good
a new
records
standard?
Yeah.
today.
What's that?
That's a new standard?
No,
Because they're not
been-
that way now, correct?
no, what you see now is kind of left over from many moons ago where they did do it. And then over the years where hydrants have been replaced or whatnot, they're just solid red. So technically speaking, so I got a hold of ISO and I said, hey, if we do this, how does it help us on our ISO rating? Do we get credit for it? The short answer is yes, we do.
Oh, cool.
So, for example, if 2 years from now ISO landed in the village and did their audit and whatnot,
Yeah.
we would actually get extra credit for having them properly marked in
Marked, yeah.
accordance with this.
ISO is
insurance services offices.
Yeah.
They set the fire ratings for municipal
It
fire
ultimately
department.
helps your homeowner's rate.
Right, your insurance rates and things like
Yeah.
that.
So basically, all I was looking for was to say, hey, if we're gonna paint, as we move forward and do get the chance to paint hydrants,
Yeah.
that we all agree that they're red and that they're in accordance with them 4 colors, depending on the flow of the hydrant.
Well, let me say, just in covering all those people, Sean had thought it would be a good idea to have a painting I don't know if he thinks it now, but he did some months ago thought a painting contest, not talking about the caps, just base of the hydrant was one of the things that he thought would be a great idea, but he also knew that he doesn't control them because they're basically belong to the water department.
Water, yeah.
So, that was what he thought then. So what's he think now?
I actually talked to him. I actually went and met with him briefly on this, and he was on board with it. Said
was
it was
fine?
a great idea.
We need a special paint, don't we? What is that?
No,
I mean,
Well, it'd have to be on.
It's not house paint.
Metal.
I mean, yeah, obviously. I mean, the only thing it doesn't require it, but it does recommend that you use, when you can, that you use paint that has some reflectivity to it. But
right.
I mean, they don't now. I'm just looking at getting
Yeah.
them painted and cleaned up and looking spiffy again.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's great.
So I just wanted to try to be, so that, you know, as they start doing them down the road, or if I do a couple, that, if we're not seeing different things, they're
Yeah,
all,
that's true. They're
I
all
mean,
consistently,
they're all, the main barrel's red,
Red.
and then the outlets go in accordance with whatever the water department tells us to.
Is that something we
The
should try to
flow is.
organize so that they all get painted sort of within a?
I think
period
we'll
of
try to
time?
come up with a color palette so that everybody paints
Yeah.
off the same
Yeah,
palette,
and then-
so we don't have one that might look a little pink and maybe
Yeah,
one that
that's
might
true.
look a little
Right,
bit,
yeah.
and
No,
maybe it
that's-
should be
that
a
would be the
summer,
key
like a
thing,
summer,
right.
fall project.
I've got
that
one
sort
in
of
front
thing.
of my house. I'll volunteer to
So the,
paint that one.
Yeah.
so
That's one
if
thing I
it's,
can do is paint.
That's good.
I'm
if the
messy.
hydrant, if the
I'm
hydrant
messy.
flows 1,500 gallons, has a capacity of 1,500 GPMs or greater, it's a light blue. The next one down, 1,000 to 1,500 is green. Orange is 500 to 999, and red is anything 500 or less.
I don't
Okay.
think we have any flows that are that low, that I recall.
I don't know.
I don't believe
not
so.
sure.
I think our flows are still pretty good.
Right. But right now, like a lot of the newer hydrants,
Yeah.
when we have them scattered around, I mean, they're just solid red
They're solid
hydrants,
red,
top to
yeah.
bottom, cat and everything. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't even, could be the best hydrant in town, and technically. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's all I
okay.
was looking for, was
Okay.
kind of so we're all on the same page. And
Right, but in order to, it needs to get organized if we want to get more than just like hit or miss your area, but
Yeah, I think
maybe
we should
not
try to
my
do that.
area.
Maybe Brian ought to organize it at least.
Spearhead a little thing that goes on, like flyer that goes on the website. Get involved and contact whoever the contact person would be, whether it's the highway department or whether it's the manager's office. Buy our own paint, get paint from the highway department, the water department, I don't know. We need some more,
Right, well, let's
It needs
get
to be a
the-
little more
let's get the
standard.
Colors straightened out. and then
Yeah,
maybe
get the
we'll
colors
talk
straightened
about
out.
A specific idea to do some community-wide.
Alright, so maybe second meeting in May or something, we could talk about it again if we don't, and see what materials have been put together, like, something that people would know who to contact and what to do, and the flow on the map for their hydrants and that sort of thing. That's a good idea. It's, you get your kids to paint, they can probably do at least as good a job as you, sir.
I'm sure they could.
He said he's messy, basically.
Messy.
Okay, anything further on this one? That sounds like a great idea.
I don't know if we,
Wait,
I think we need to vote on, or just,
I don't think so.
I don't
I
think
don't
so
think
either.
no.
Just kind of informational.
The community project kind of thing, Financials is the next item on our agenda. And we think we sort of covered some of it talking about the audit, right? So there was that.
Yeah, and I think I think we've all got questions about how up to date the numbers are.
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of inclined to, there were a couple of things that surprised me on the general fund budget.
Mhm.
One was, one was the water and sewer for the Waypoint Center.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know why we paid for that.
We do, that's our agreement.
That's our deal?
That's our
Okay.
agreement.
And it ought to be a budgeted item, I suppose.
Yeah. What page is that one on? You know?
I didn't
Yeah.
write.
You
the
didn't write it down,
pages
okay. But
And
yeah, I'll go
then
back through and look.
I noticed that we had an insurance deductible payment, so obviously we must have had a claim.
Well, remember, we had a police car. that hit
Okay,
a
so
tree.
that was,
Yep.
I recall during our previous,
that's probably where the,
yes.
yeah, okay.
So having
ag-
been on the board for a year,
Mhm.
is this an anomaly this year that the information's not up to date? Was it the disruption of COVID, or we're not
I
clear?
think it's a combination of things over the last year that have made things more difficult. You know, the lack of personnel, our finance director's overwhelmed, those kinds of things. I'm just noticing, I want to assure people on page 2, I was not overpaid. Where it says village president is $1,800 and it's only budgeted for $1,000. That $800 is supposed to go into the trustees' wages, and that would have bring it up to 100%. It's booked in the wrong account. So I did not get another check, I
You
swear.
didn't mess with the books.
I swear. No, I have nothing to do with that.
But Jeff, I would say that in recent years, fortunately, our audits have been clean. I don't know what this one's gonna look like.
That's funny.
Back, 6, 7 years ago, we had some real audit issues. But we've had some issues in the finance department, not just this year, but a few years in the back.
Yeah, we have.
In the rear. So I wished it was an anomaly. I think compared to last year, I would say this year has been more difficult
It has,
than
yeah.
last year.
Right.
But
And
it's
you're right.
hard to go back further than that.
And you're right, our concerns are the due to, due from accounts for
Oh,
the
yeah.
wastewater and water forms, those are because of a previous finance director.
No, because
Those did not get
the-
fixed then.
The big due from,
Yep.
a big due to arrived in 2020.
It did.
Yeah, so this has been recent. Now, I've been complaining about it for the year.
Yep.
But it's anyway,
Been challenging year.
challenging.
So any particular questions at this point? Probably not.
No.
Okay, I mean, we're over budget in some areas and under budget in others. And
I
right.
think the only thing, Deb, at this
Yeah.
point is we are still on target to not exceed any of our expenditures.
Right.
And we probably are on target to again add to fund balance at this point, even with the discussion that we had about buying the car.
yep,
So I guess if there's any news in relationship to how we're performing, I think that's really been how we've been trying to track our overall performance.
Mhm.
And we have some work to do to get to where we want to be with our consistency and our reporting. And so we're going to work on that diligently. We have some things that are in the works.
good. All right, then we would move on to the next item, which is the annual meeting Zoom discussion. And that was because I didn't want to see the same problems that the town had in March with, having to have a big Zoom meeting with, we have 60, 70, 80 people
Yeah.
on Zoom who wanted to participate, wanted to be counted. That's actually quite difficult to do, especially when people do things, like Fact TV. I don't see a face. It's not going to be, but when you see people's names, you can't be sure it's them unless they actually put their face on there. You have a name attached to it. Someone can identify that. I mean, it's not the same as being on the floor. Right. And of course, the budget and elections will all be on Tuesday, but making sure that our communication is proper so that at least we have good audio, that we have a way to count them all. I mean, I don't know if there's I don't know if Zoom has a counter so it can actually keep track for us. It does say on the bottom how many participants, so except subtracting us and Fact TV, should give us an accurate count of the number of people on there, so we could know who attended the meeting. Yeah, that's true. You can have two people. Yeah, your whole household could sit there on one screen, and if they're not counted properly, so those are difficulties. Audio has always been a problem. Getting people to use microphones, please, folks. Without a microphone, it doesn't record on Fact TV. It doesn't come across properly. You won't hear it properly in a second iteration. You need to use your microphone, no matter how loud you are. But we've always had miking problems. Sometimes there's glitches. People complain, send us phone calls during the meeting saying they can't hear anything, they can't see anything. I mean, all of those are
Right.
difficulties without Zoom, and now we're going to have the Zoom level.
So we'll have Alex, and again, since we had one shakedown cruise on this, it gives us, we learned some lessons on the setup from March, so I think we'll be better prepared for May. We're going to do some dry runs on a couple of things that I think will be beneficial to help with the question of who's online, how that gets communicated to the moderator, so that there are questions or people that want to participate. We'll have a more orderly process on how that works. So I think there's some process that's going to be worked into that. And I think the goal is, in talking with Alex, is to do a setup, have the ability to do a dry run prior to the informational meeting on that Monday night,
Right.
so that we can double check microphone levels. I know at the last meeting we had some feedback problems because we were getting, some mics were sort of screeching and feeding back. So we can get all of that worked out prior to, I think, that Monday's presentation. So that's the plan.
I mean, the people are communicating when they're on Zoom. They're actually communicating through the screen, right? It's not like not using a microphone. It's using whatever
Right.
audio capability is on
their
that.
computer, which
on their
is
computer.
one of the things you got to ask people, check your volume, right? Because sometimes people turn it down,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, and then you can't hear, and we get into that whole
Exactly.
conversation. So
Yeah. So and then last time we had Pat Fowler was there counting all the heads on the screen, trying to get an accurate count of the number of people who participated, but it was done too far into the meeting, so it just made it more complicated. So, I mean, this year there is nothing this is a very simple ballot. Since we do Australia now every year for the budget, there'll be questions about the budget, but we haven't put any articles on here that they would vote on the floor. There will be in future years, and we don't know whether we'll be using this. So it makes it more difficult, especially to count hands and heads and that sort of thing if you have to use remote access. So it's the more kinks we get out of it, the better we learn for the next time.
Right, yeah.
I agree.
Okay, the last item on our agenda this evening is the discussion on the open meeting laws compliance.
Yes.
I see you
I'm sorry, go ahead, Deb.
put material in our packets for that.
I'm sure for most of you, that's information you probably are well aware of. I just thought it was helpful in case there was a specific question. In the past, Deb has raised issues about timeliness with posting of agendas or posting of minutes.
Yep.
There's different interpretations about how you want to handle the posting of minutes. Some places post within the 5-day window the unapproved minutes. Then they go to the meeting, like we would tonight, we would approve a set of minutes, and then those minutes would be replaced with an approved set of minutes. Not everybody does it that way.
Yeah.
It seems to go community by community. We're throwing it on the floor to this group just to get a sense of how the board would like that to be handled. It can create some confusion because obviously before the minutes are approved, we've had instances where board members have asked for items to be updated or clarified, or in some cases are just plain wrong. And then that information's been up and posted, and creates conflict in some people's minds. So
That's true, but of course with COVID relaxing of the rules, you actually have 10 days
Correct.
to post. But getting to 2 weeks on items and beyond, and there's stuff on the website which is some hasn't been posted since the 30th of March and stuff like that. That's a problem. It's a problem because we want to show transparency. not getting our agendas posted within 48 hours for regular meetings is a problem. I keep, I'm sure she's watching by Fact TV, but the reporter who contacts me today and said, "Hey, you're having a meeting, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Not posted." Okay, so I immediately go to Scott and let him know it didn't get posted. My feeling is we really need someone who's the go-to person, the same person every time, who posts all minutes and all agendas. And that person is responsible. They're the traffic person. We used to have that in an executive assistant. Um, I don't want to keep talking about Carrie, but the reality is she'd done it for so long. She was like, bing, 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 and it's done. But now I feel like a knee-jerk reaction to check the website all the time to see if the minutes get posted, because people are doing way more than double duty on their job. And that's problematic. When one person's down, well, now who's doing what? And I know that we've saved money by not having a full-time executive assistant for a village, split between village and town, but we need to be consistent. We need to follow the rules. I don't want someone to get, file a complaint, complaints about us for breaking open meeting law, and by not posting in a timely manner, we are. Every time. And I feel bad about having a meeting when it wasn't posted in a timely manner. Maybe it bothers me more than it does anyone else, but I really think we should be compliant as much as we possibly can. That's why I wanted to talk about that. I want us to get our stuff posted within the time frame required. The agendas at the most really have to be out and we still do. I think we still do 3 paper postings.
Yes.
Once at the police department, once at the library, and once at the town clerk's office. Right. And then the website. If you have a website, you have to post it. For instance, Saxon's River, now that they're part of our website, they have to post it within the same time. And you still only have 48 hours. You don't get extra time like you do for posting minutes. It still has to be done 24 hours if it's a special, and less than 24 if it's an emergency.
So I got a question. So what's been I believe the practice for the minutes has been they don't go on until they're approved?
They're supposed to get posted within, because of COVID, within 10 days. Still supposed to be posted, even if they're not approved by the board, because we would meet for another 4 days.
Okay.
We meet every 2 weeks, right? So that would still have to be posted, even if we say there's something wrong with them and they need to be adjusted. But in truth, according to the Secretary of State, we don't really have to be approving minutes. We do, because we want to review them, make sure we know that what we said is what we said. But technically, according to the Secretary of State, and we've been advised by Ray Masuko in the past, when the secretary does the minutes, the record keeper, the clerk, does the minutes, those minutes are the minutes. They are finalized and accepted by the state and posted in a timely manner. That's all there is to it. But as a courtesy, the clerk will take adjustments, like, if my name's spelled wrong or that sort of thing, or I wasn't at the meeting, could you take me off? That's usually done. I don't think we have any real confusion about the minutes. We haven't had a kerfluffle about the minutes for the last several years.
No, but I do think the unapproved minutes should be posted within 10 days.
Right.
And then when
We'll
we
review
approve
them.
them,
When was the last time we had a big change we wanted on the minutes anyway? Usually not much.
there've been not a
Little
lot.
things, yeah.
Little things.
Just once or twice,
Mhm.
I think, since I've been here.
But things were different than we
Yeah.
perceived them when we were at the meeting. So I think we're good with the way things are being done, as long as they get posted in the manner required. We're good.
So how do we fix the problem, though?
Well, that's up to the manager. We're talking about it. The
Well,
manager
I have
understands
some
how we feel
ideas
about
that
it.
I'll share with you, that involves the clerk's office, and I think since Kathleen's on vacation, it's a little difficult. She's not here, so I was hoping to be able to bring her into the conversation. To be honest with you, everywhere I've ever worked, the clerk is the person responsible for agendas, minutes,
Posting.
of any information.
That's what I was getting at. I guess
So-
I should, yeah.
We have a little bit of a different situation here because the clerk is elected, but I think that's a conversation that we should possibly have. And then that creates one place, one, and for all of our boards, because, it's not just this board, it's the DRB, it's the
Right.
ordinance review.
Oh, it's just tons, yeah.
Right, I mean, stuff is flowing through the organization, at least then there's a specific catch point.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, up until when Carrie back,
Retired, yeah.
everything was boom, boom, boom.
Right, she was
But-
also the clerk.
Right,
So
but
she-
since then, it's
Right.
been
The
kind of hit or
worker.
miss?
Yes.
It has been, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so it needs to be.
And that's difficult. I mean, Kathleen, apparently, based upon my understanding, does not have the innate knowledge of the system to post. Therefore, she can type up minutes, but she gives them to somebody else for the posting. So like Chuck.
Right.
And,
The beauty of that is we're gonna do training.
yeah,
And the wonderful
Yep.
thing about training is then other people can be backups.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But I think once you've trained and you have a primary and then people have backups, we're a small organization, we don't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think that's something that we'll have to I'll bring back to you in a written format.
that'd be great.
So we're gonna schedule the training this month, and then I hope to get through the election and have a formal change in June.
That'd be great. I mean, reduced staff has saved us money, I guess, during COVID. But it hasn't done much for keeping us compliant with state requirements. Just because well, the person posting, right, currently, most of the time has too much else to do, especially come spring. You got your zoning administrator posting your minutes and your agendas and all that stuff, and he's like, everywhere, doing all these other things, in and out of the office, and doesn't have, the time to focus on it. One person who's in office all during their workday should be able to boom, 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 post them. Sorry. Great. Okay, so you'll come back to us
Yes.
at a later date with that.
Yep.
Anything further on that, gentlemen? Okay. All right, that moves us down to the reviewing agenda items for the next meeting, May 11th, 2021. And it says here the bond bank representative.
I'm
Will be
waiting for
available.
confirmation, as we
Okay.
had discussed at the previous meeting. We were hoping to have a full presentation from our bond bank about some of the concerns that have been raised about negative interest, how some of the bonds are being placed in the market, how are we getting getting placed, I guess, in the marketplace. So I think it's important to have that in a public conversation and a deeper understanding of how that is all working. So I haven't confirmed yet. We've been in touch, and we're hoping to make sure that we can do a presentation for that on the 11th.
I think one of the other things that we wanted, and maybe you can get that information internally, is what promises were made by the previous manager and finance director on our rates. We know we had one, but according to what we've heard at last meeting and the meeting before, we are supposedly committed to certain increases on an annual basis. Okay, maybe they're 2 years, but I want to know exactly what those are.
My recollection was that we were required to commit to water rate increases 2 years in a row.
Okay.
Okay, and I believe the second year is this coming fall.
Okay.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that we had to do that. I think Shannon was right.
But I'd like to see it in
In that
writing.
regard.
That's all, just to be
It
sure.
should be in the minutes. It should be in the minutes because I think we had a vote. I'm sure we had a vote. And
Is that just water or water and sewer?
Or we're just
just
wastewater.
water. That was water.
Wait, it was water or wastewater?
Water.
Water. Okay.
Yeah. But in looking at well, based on the discussion tonight, and getting a better understanding of what all these receivables were, the fact that it's bond money that's already on our books,
Mhm.
but yet some hasn't been drawn down. We need to know that we've got all the money in house that we're supposed to have. Then, if you look at our budget for the water and sewer, we show a huge surplus in the water department for 2022. And again, I want to be and we also saw in the bond schedule that all of the interest credits were being applied to the a water debt service, none to the sewer
Oh,
debt
right.
service.
Mhm.
So the combination of the operation results and the way this is being applied made it look like we didn't really need to do increases in the water fund.
Mhm.
And, obviously, if we're going to get this 800 and something thousand dollars
Mhm.
to pay down our due to in the wastewater fund, then we need to look again at the projection for this year's budget, 2022 budget, and make sure that what we're talking about for rate increases is appropriate. But, it would be nice if we don't need rate increases in the water fund to clear that with the bond bank, because we don't want to violate our agreement with them.
Yeah.
But also we don't want our customers having to pay higher rates when
Yeah.
it's not necessary yet. So anyway, I hope we're going to be ready, but I think getting this receivable and the collection of the receivable for both water and sewer, for what we're entitled to, is real important before we talk to the bond bank.
And hopefully that'll happen in the next 2 weeks, right, Jordan?
Yes, because I want to have the completed financials for
Mhm.
our annual meeting for the 17th, so that doesn't put us too far out. So this has to happen fairly quickly.
Okay. So anything else anyone can think of at the moment needs to go on there? On the agenda, not this.
Well, we talked about the hydrants, and we talked about
Yep.
the
And-
pump house.
The pump house, yep. We may or may not have more
Right.
information
Right.
By next month for those things, by the 11th anyway, for those things. It might be the second meeting in the month instead. But we'll see.
And when are we scheduled for? I know I ask this every meeting, for the machine that's
Oh, the
drying
dryer?
out
That would be June. The next update is for
June.
June. Okay.
Dryer June,
Yeah.
yeah. Still on track for June. There is, and in May, we'll have wind up having that discussion, maybe the first meeting, maybe the second, about whether we're going to go to a summer schedule, which is what we usually do, which is one meeting per month, June, July, and August. That's worth considering,
Okay.
summer schedule. Let's see. Okay, then if that's all for the next
And
meeting at
then
this point, yes? You have something?
who's going to do what at the annual meeting?
Oh, yes, we do need that. There isn't a lot to read, but,
No.
and they didn't do it at the town meeting because there wasn't a lot to read either, but, okay. So who reads what and who does what?
And whether we want to do any kind of an explanation of the budget.
Yep.
It's up.
Do you know when the annual report will be printed and out?
I'm working on some of the pieces of it this week. I'm hoping to have the draft out. I'm
Okay.
waiting on some of the financial statements because I don't want to finalize it until we have the final draft, the final statements.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to put these in with drafts.
Yeah, well, I was thinking it has to be out so many days prior to the meeting.
It has to be out by the 7th. It has to
Yeah.
be 10 days prior to the.
It doesn't give you a lot of
information.
time to print.
No.
Oh.
Nope.
Okay,
We'll
we'll
get
just
there.
stay on top of that, so people ask.
Yes.
Okay, items, so I did put down, who does what at the annual meeting.
Okay.
If there's going to be a dry run, prior to, maybe one or two of us might want to show up, to that, just to see how it's orchestrated. I mean, basically, it's gonna be the same way as the
We'll
select
be down in
boards.
the lower area. Right.
Yep,
Cameras will be in the
and we'll be
audience.
doing the same thing on Tuesday for the elections. The voting, they're done there,
Right.
because they're ready for practice.
It doesn't appear that we'll have been lifting our COVID restrictions, so we'll still have some
Yeah.
COVID protocols to follow, but it'll certainly be, I think,
Yeah, they're saying July
Less,
4 at this point, so
right. so.
still got some time.
Yeah.
Review agenda items for the joint board meeting. still get TBD, we got time because it's the end of June, right? It's the end of
You
June.
wanted to bring up the one item we talked
Yep,
about
the
this
one-
afternoon?
Oh, this afternoon, yes.
Yes.
So we had the first meeting of the working group for the automated vehicles. Susan was appointed from the select board. We had discussed, and we did discuss it because we thought perhaps they might want to have input, but haven't put it on their agenda or in meeting minutes with Sacklands River. So no one has come forward for that yet, but they might, still as we continue conversations. And what we kind of determined is we need to ask both of our boards, so Susan's gonna do the same. I would like everyone, and I'll send an email to Stefan. I'd like you to consider what questions and concerns you have about just signing a resolution that we would be a testing community if, when it happens, which could be next year, 2 years, 10 years down the road. We don't know when it'll happen and who will want to come to Vermont and get a permit from the state to do that sort of thing. But we have lots of control. This is a getting it done our way, and what areas we don't want. The only thing we don't have any control over is Class 1 roads, which includes 103 and Route 5, which is Atkinson Street. That's already a done deal. I mean, the state has control over that, but there's nobody asking at this point. As of today, there's no one coming to them and asking to start testing. Springfield's already set, so some of our roads could wind up connecting to theirs, but we have some control over saying, even when they get to, if somebody's coming, they get a 60-day review, we could say, hold it. But the town handles the roads, controls the roads basically, but they would not want to sign a resolution if we didn't. So if I could get in the next 2 weeks, questions from you guys on what your concerns are about the AV. They'll be putting more material back on the website so you can get a handle on those answers to those questions. Other things that you might consider a problem, what control, and all of those will go to the V-Trans guys, to Joe and to Mike, and they will get us answers. So we can kind of build up a better understanding of it. There are more communities starting to use AV, and you'll see them on television. I just saw Amazon is putting $5 million or more dollars into, maybe it's $5 billion, into AV. So I don't know, they might actually hit the road here in Vermont before anybody else. There's a couple of different companies in different states using them for a pizza delivery, and there was something else, and New Jersey's pushing to get AV as an AV community there. So it's not like it's not that if it'll ever happen, it's when it will happen. We just don't know when. And we should be ready for it by designing and building our expectations for a testing community. So that's it. You got 2 weeks. Send me anything that you have. I'll consolidate them all together. I'll get them off to Scott, and then we'll get answers from V-Trans. Please. And because at the June joint board meeting, the proposal will be put forward to sign the resolution. So Susan's got her job to do, and I've got mine. So please, whatever you think about, talk with your friends and neighbors. What are their concerns? Things that might hold you back that we could maybe get some answers to. And that's the only point for the joint board meeting at this point. Whatever else we have, we still got another couple months.
Yep, I got one for the joint board meeting.
What's that?
That Herrick's Cove agreement, patrol agreement.
With Great River Hydro? No, patrolling.
Remember last year
Yeah,
we said we'd wait till the spring?
Exactly, and so I don't know what Scott knows about it, but the patrol, we had an agreement that someone from the village, a police department, patrols and closes the gate.
Okay.
Is it just on the weekends?
Just on the weekend.
Just on the weekends, and
I think they
guess
go up there every
they take a
day.
run around, yeah, and maybe it's a couple of times a day, I don't know.
It could be.
But they definitely lock the gate at a certain time in the evening, and that was just during the summer months, we were told. So we'd like to get some clarification on that, maybe
Okay.
for the 11th meeting, if you can find out from Bemis what's going on with that.
Yep.
We didn't have a agreement in force or whatever to do it.
No, it was just it was a verbal.
It
Wendy,
was something that had been kind of
yeah.
under the radar for a while, I guess.
Okay.
Prior to that, Great River Hydro paid someone
The
to do
sheriff.
it.
They
The
paid the
sheriff to do
sheriff
it?
to do it.
Yeah,
Mm.
and then they stopped doing that. So now the previous manager got that to happen, but we want to see where it is now.
Got it to happen with the local PD.
with our officers were doing it.
But
We
I'm,
didn't
I'm
really-
assuming Great River Hydro didn't give us any money. for
No.
the Service.
No, it was freebie.
So we,
Well, I think they were, as a taxpayer, they were looking for a little service.
what happened was, by the
Yeah.
time all this came to light last year, it was like the season was over. Right. So we just kind of said, we'll wait till next spring.
And then bring it up again.
Revisit it.
Thank you for remembering that,
There
Wade.
we are.
Yeah, that sounds great. You have anything for the, that, like Wade was saying, or for the joint board at this point? Okay. All right, then moving on, we're down to review and, we don't have any orders, bills and warrants, do we?
No.
Okay. So then we move down to other business. Scott,
No, nothing at this point.
okay? Wade?
No.
Jigs?
No.
I did, it was the AV, but I already handled it, thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Jumped the gun, sorry about that.
And, okay, and Jeff's all set? All right, then, I need, no need for executive session this evening. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll suck it up.
Okay, I do have a question before we adjourn. Who's taking the minutes?
My understanding is that Brenda's gonna do them off the website.
Okay.
Yes, because our.
Oh, off of Fact TV,
Yes.
basically, okay. All right, so all those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
All right?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much and have a good night.